Dynamite Download.
Dynamite Download, your home for all positive coverage on all elite wrestling. Special event, as you can see, SPD about Cleveland-born badass.
To see the height and to see the commitment and to see the drive. We'll see, yours truly, without a signature shade, SPD once again. January recruitment month for that.
You know, I come along in the ring.
You know, actually, I did do that. I was thinking
Dynamite, we are here, all three in the flesh.
Have to do an interview with those guys. You know why? Because they spread positivity about AEW.
Welcome to Dynamite Download.
The Dukes
TGIF, baby.
and the Dukes are back, baby. It's great.
TGIF, baby.
Yes, sir. I'll cheers to that, my friend.
Cheers. I got my cocktail ale for that.
Fantastic. I'm trying to drink the rest of these summer shandies before summer's over, man. It feels like September is right around the corner. Fall is almost here, folks. Summer is fast fading, and with
I
that,
know.
All Out is right around the corner. And, you know, I know that Tony Khan, you listen to Busted Open, you listen to some of this other stuff that's out there and social media. Tony Khan was, you know, there was some criticism about, you know, man, we're so close to All Out, and, you know, where are the matches? Well, you know, Sean, just this week, man, All Out is starting to come together. The picture's starting to come together, and the scene, the roster right now, the matches and the feuds that are being built, it's pulled me back in. I mean, you were texting me the other day about, man, you and I haven't done a live show together since June.
I know.
And
it's crazy.
Truth of the matter is, man, the way the product is starting to shape up right now, it reignites that passion, man. This road to All Out is so awesome right now, man. And so many of our favorites are getting featured. And that's one of the things that I was really thinking about, you know, and we'll get into it. You know, we're both rocking Team Moxley shirts tonight. I love it.
Right.
And there's a lot of excitement around that main event world title unification match.
I mean, this Dynamite
let's get into that, man, because this Dynamite
not
was
a typical Dynamite because of it was high quality versus quantity, and I'm all for that. If we can get another 30-minute match, like, you know, we saw, which we'll talk about second, Danielson and Garcia, you know, if we can get that consistent basis, I think, you know, all fans will be happy versus those kind of short squashes just to feature some people, which I get. It's got a place and time and place and all that, but, you know, I love this tight show and a lot of unexpected things, like what we heard. You know, the announcement of CM Punk kicking off Dynamite wasn't announced. It was kind of a last-minute swerve, and it was quite the swerve indeed, because CM Punk kicking off that Dynamite, it was a hell of a promo. And, I mean, he is one of the best in the biz on the mic for a reason. And he was not holding back any punches. A lot of times I was like covering my mouth. I'm like, oh, he just said that.
Yeah,
and
you're not the only
one. Mox was not far behind throwing the haymakers back and forth. I mean, they were leaning in, and I genuinely felt, I know these are professionals, but I genuinely felt there was a hatred there for both of these guys. The way they acted, the unscriptedness of the promos that, you know, it felt, and then how much they're trying to get at each other. I know that's kind of booking 101, and it never gets old. It's always fun. We're like, okay, the security there. Oh, I'm going at you again. Oh, wait, no, hold me back. I'm going at you again. Like, it works every time. You cannot go wrong when they do that, but it works every time. But this was one of those that I really felt like it was real. You know,
and honestly, there's a lot of lingering feelings about this feeling real, because I mean, the buzz on the internet right now talking about, you know, CM Punk's pot shots at Hangman Adam Page, you know, kind of out of nowhere. But the truth of the matter is, this is the CM Punk that we know. I mean, you and I have talked about this. If there's a more natural heel between these two, CM Punk certainly feels that way.
Right.
And you know, some of this heat that's being built between him and Hangman, him and John Moxley. I mean, I personally see like this as, you know, this is an example of two AEW diehards. I mean, truthfully, Hangman, part of the elite, part of the very group that founded this company. But secondly, I mean, how often do we talk about it?
Yeah.
John Moxley said it in his promo, and I know you were eating it up, just like about how he's the heart and soul.
Slurping it.
He's the heart and soul. Slurp it. Give me a smuck too.
Yeah. Slurping that up, baby.
I mean, honestly, though, you were eating that promo up, dude, because it was
Yeah.
Moxley speaking like, I am the heart and soul of this company. And you and I have seen that from day one. Moxley, even though he's an ex-WWE guy, he feels like he's the heartbeat of this company. And that says a lot when there are so many great talents and personalities in this company. But Moxley stands up, I think, almost head and shoulders. And you loved Cody Rhodes. Cody also had that vibe to him, but Moxley's carrying that torch, man, and he's putting on some of the best work of his entire career, his entire life right now. And for him to be paired up against CM Punk, and let's face it, there are a few people who can do what Punk can do on the microphone. It's because let's be real, dude. He's a jerk. I mean, he's good at being a jerk. I mean, like, he's always been good at being a jerk. The straight edge means I'm better than you. Mentality that he's always had. There's some truth to how he treats people and how he's kind of in the business for himself at times. I think that
money. I like that money line where he's like, he said something about you're the heart and soul, but I'm the one that cashes checks or something like that. And then
exactly owning
Moxley
it,
cutting
just own
deep,
it.
saying, you just ran out of money. So a lot of it was fun. And I mean, the blows where he mentioned third best in group, I was like, oh shoot, man, you're the third best in your own group. Like,
and that was something that people were joking around about on Twitter, is because I was bantering back and forth with fans. It was funny because, that goes a long history between Punk and John Moxley, because Punk you could say, was it a double meaning? Was it a reference to the Shield, who,
definitely
he was a member with Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns? I mean, and then you talk about Blackpool Combat Club, and you can easily argue right now, I think a lot of people could, that Bryan Danielson is at least one of the best wrestlers on the planet, top three, and certainly in the argument that he could be better than John Moxley. He's on your Hall of Fame, your Mount Rushmore,
right?
And I mean, Claudio Castagnoli, former Cesaro, the guy is the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Champion. Certainly doesn't have the natural, promo and vibe that Moxley has. But when you're talking about in the ring, Claudio has few peers. So, it was a real nice jab by CM Punk. And I think that this is only the beginning. I think this feud has a lot of potential to be, as JR has talked about, maybe the most significant feud in AEW history. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, JR said it himself. And you think about it, Sean, we've been following AEW since day one. What feud has that kind of star power that stands out in your mind? I mean, I don't know, dude. I tend to think that this is really AEW has got their foot on the gas, and we've talked about how loaded their roster is. This feels like they recognize Moxley and Punk are two top stars.
Yeah.
Let's go all in and go all out. And
they're not going all out. That's the thing. So
it's gonna happen. Come on.
One of those things. So I thought at first when they announced it, what do you guys think in the chat? Like, what do you think is going to happen with this match on free TV next week? Do you think it's actually going to go through? Are they going to have a rematch at All Out? Like, this is your marquee.
Oh, yeah. Everybody thinks this is going to be
hometown Chicago marquee main event. And if this goes through on Wednesday and it is a one and done.
Yeah, right.
That's just like, there's no way. As much as I want Mox to win, because I think he is the workhorse of AEW and kind of the backbone, who has been there through thick and thin, CM Punk, Chicago, All Out, return. Like you have this. It is true that will sell pay-per-views. So what do you think is going to happen? Like,
well, of course, I don't know. SPD, you're brilliant, and you always have that crystal ball, and I think that you're on the. I mean, I think any of us could see. Tony's given us the tease, right?
Yeah.
He's given us that tease, but I think the payoff has to be at All Out. And this is only going to make us like gnaw at the bone that much more.
Right.
Like we want this so bad. I think that they're going to tease us. It's going to be a great tease. And I think AEW's learned like they have so much talent, SPD, that they can put on a bonkers show whenever they want. I mean, you just talked about this episode featuring Bryan Danielson versus Daniel Garcia, and just the in-ring showcase that those guys had. We saw the returns. We saw CM Punk and the return of Kenny Omega all on the same show. I mean,
West Virginia,
literally
close
AEW.
to North Carolina.
I mean, let's be real. I mean, truthfully, when we look at the quality of the show and even like post Rampage tonight, man, I was very impressed by Rampage tonight. I mean, I know that Rampage sometimes gets slack and for being the B show, but I think that like if we're being honest with ourselves, the time slot of 11 p.m. Eastern time, there's a certain cap that you want to do as far as investing in that show. And I think when you have an episode like this, when you have Britt Baker on this episode, you have the Factory on this episode, you have Keith Lee and Swerve, and we got to see those guys live.
Fatty ass ready to smack that ass.
We got to see Swerve in Our Glory live when we were in Detroit. I mean, there's a lot of talent here. And I think that the thing that is a beautiful to see on AEW is that they recognize, all right, let's flesh out some of these other stories, but let's make Jon Moxley versus CM Punk be front and center. And dude, those guys came out later on in the show. I mean, you couldn't peel these two guys apart from each other in that episode. And that's one of the things is like, you talked about it. Some of these shots feeling real, and it's nice when the line is blurred. Again, there's the conversation about Hangman Page and CM Punk and what CM Punk did, taking a pot shot at Page, and the feeling that Hangman has real animosity towards him. This is the type of stuff that fans like to talk about. This is the type of stuff that gets us our juices going for a match. You know what I mean? So I want to see Hangman get another shot at Punk now after what Punk just said. It's just brilliant storytelling, and this is one of the things we've always liked about AEW is that they're constantly weaving their stories together. There's always like long-term references to things, and it's great to see. And I think no better storytellers than CM Punk and Jon Moxley to take this one home.
So this is one I just can't put my thumb on. Like, there's so many ways that this could go that I'm excited for. Like, if this does go through like a cleanish win, and then if CM Punk wins, like Mox potentially no build for a pay-per-view match. Or if, let's just say, CM Punk wins, and then he could face a Hangman Page, or someone could cost him like an MJF. But I know you guys are talking in the chat about MJF. Like, I would love that, and I would love for that. But I feel like Liam is leaning in towards that heel CM Punk that we're going to get. But I want the MJF. If MJF and CM Punk do meet again, when they do meet again, which I want MJF to be the next champ of AEW, he deserves it. I want it to be a feud. I don't want it to be a rush 1 week thing. I want it to be drawn out, because that's a drawn out feud for MJF is where the gold comes. All of his feuds have been months long, and every time they make you want to hate MJF more and more and more and more and more, and must see segments.
Can I just throw something out there?
Yeah.
I mean, and I want to even pose this question to Wardlow, who I know, like, he's a fan of ours, and he watches the show, at least clips of it.
Yeah.
And this is what I want to pose the question is, you see Wardlow with the TNT championship. You see FTR with multiple championships.
Suitcase is full.
Right? We're starting to see maybe the underlying of the Pinnacle coming back with all gold. I know that Wardlow and MJF, they had their differences, but what if MJF can weasel his way back into the good graces of the War Dog, be partners with FTR, and screw over CM Punk and take the belt? I mean, then you have MJF with the world title, Wardlow with the TNT title, FTR with multiple tag team titles. The vision of the Pinnacle finally coming to fruition. Long storytelling. I think it would be awesome. The inner heel in me is actually rooting for that to happen. It would be the Pinnacle kind of ended, but didn't end. And we're starting to see, and I'm with you, Mind Runner, why not have Shawn Spears go after Claudio and put on epic matches and take that belt? I mean, if you had, and again, cut me off here, SPD, if I'm ranting from a heel perspective, but I think that could be really fascinating. And I think that we all want to see MJF become world champion eventually. And the feud with CM Punk is probably, even though MJF has had multiple amazing feuds in his career, I mean, literally every feud he's been in has been incredible. But the CM Punk feud felt like it was the most pinnacle. It was the most important, pivotal feud in his career, right? I feel like that was the one. Even though you could argue Cody, like that first feud that he had was hot.
Put him on the map.
He had a great feud with Mox, who I actually have MJF's campaign shirt from that one where he was going against Dictator John. MJF has always delivered, and I think it would be so funny and it would be entertainment gold if the Pinnacle came back and imagine them all strutting with the belts off the jet, like the Horsemen. I want to see that. I want to see the Pinnacle like the Horsemen in true Horseman fashion. It would be incredible.
That ship has sailed, sadly.
I don't think so.
Wardlow and FTR are no way going back to the dark side.
Wardlow, I want to know, is it possible? That's what I want to know. Anything is possible, SPD. Never say never, my friend. And FTR, even though you're loving Dax's stash, being pure babyface, we all know FTR can also be pretty dirty. So I don't know, man. I think it would be fascinating television. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I don't have the crystal ball, but I certainly have devious plans. And if it were up to me and I was Tony Khan, that would be my end game. I would have MJF come back, and imagine how hilarious.
That's your ace up your sleeve.
Well, imagine how hilarious it would be too, right? For MJF to like laugh in all of our faces that we all fell in love with Dax and Cash and Wardlow. We all fell in love with them, rooted for them to become champions, and then they all become bad. They all were working under like scheming to help MJF come back and win it. It would be so great. I would love it.
When MJF comes back, he needs to. I mean, I hope it's true too, but he needs to play the card where Tony Khan got him a new contract where he's now the highest paid guy in AEW and just like milk that up and rub it into everyone's face.
Yeah,
but I got to hear this. We got to talk about the best match of the night by far. I think,
and I think best match of the. You could say best match of the week. Absolutely,
best match of the week for sure. This was. You could watch these two in the ring for hours. They're so good. They work so well, and like that's one of those things I love about Danielson is like. Yes, he's in great shape, but he's not like, let's say, your cookie cutter Hulk Hogan beast wrestler. And Garcia is far from that, but they could put on these amazing shows and pound for pound hold their weight. I mean, these guys literally beat the shit out of each other, and it was so fun to watch. It was brutal.
Absolutely.
There was a lot of brutal spots in it. But one of the things that I've been, takeaways about Danielson over the past few weeks and months is like, when was the last time you've seen him with the Blackpool Combat Club? No one has accompanied him to the ring. He hasn't stood in the ring with them. Obviously, he still rocks his plain white T-shirt. But, when we were there at Blood and Guts, obviously he was out hurt. And Claudio, that was his debut match. And so, like, what's going on with Danielson and Blackpool Combat Club? You just think they're just kind of letting the stars, him run his own course for now? I guess, even so, like, do you think he's on the outs of it, or it's just one of those things? It's like, we'll let you do your own thing. We're still, brothers in arms and all that. Like, that's one of those questions I just can't. I'm curious of your take and everyone else's take. Like, what is Danielson's status with Blackpool Combat Club? Because we have not seen him aligned with his brothers recently.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're on pins and needles, right? I mean, you're a diehard Danielson fan, and you are rocking the Blackpool Combat Club shirt. So, I mean, I can tell you that's something you're invested in.
Right.
I'll be honest with you, I didn't even really think about that with my reaction to this match. My initial reaction was really about Garcia, and I'll still listen to Cult of Cornette, Jim Cornette's. I'll listen to some of his stuff. I can only do it in bits and pieces. I can't like, even if I start liking an episode or two, then he ends up doing something or saying something that puts me off. But long story short, I know that he and Brian have been very, very critical of Daniel Garcia. And one of the things that they like to keep track of is, how many matches Daniel Garcia is in Dynamite. And it's just saying like how this roster is so loaded, but how Tony Khan is such an awful booker because he books Daniel Garcia more than anybody. And I just want to say, like, the more that they do that, they go down that narrative, the worse they look, because you have a match like this. I don't know how anybody can walk away from this match and not just be like absolutely blown away by what Daniel Garcia can do in the ring. I mean, we all know that Danielson is a stud, an absolute workhorse. And SPD, I know you're up front, proud in the front of that parade, cheering on Bryan Danielson. You're like me with Pac, who I also think is in that class of competitor. But no, man, I think that it was a great showcase of a young talent who is hungry. And that's one of the things I've always liked about Garcia, even though he's a part of Jericho Appreciation Society and they have this like sports entertainment goof. It's clearly showing that's not him, right? That's not who he is. And he even the crowd was chanting, "You're a wrestler." It's so great. Yes, exactly.
You guys are on like wavelength.
Yeah, Mind Runner, nice. It's that was a beautiful story that was told in this ring. And what was cool too is Garcia got the first win.
That was a brutal pin. That power driver.
He choked Danielson out. I mean, that in and of itself, he's a made man, right? Yeah. I've always been a fan of Garcia. You and I have talked about that a lot. Even and
it took me a bit, but now I'm a huge fan.
His pairing with Daddy Magic and Angelo Parker is so great. It's absolute gold, and it's been that way for a long time. Those guys, even if Jericho Appreciation Society starts to fall apart, I hope that those guys stay together because they're just gold together. But I'll be transparent, man. That, like, even though Danielson, we got to see a showcase by one of the best in the world, I just came away so impressed with Garcia. And there are so many guys who could have the claim of being a pillar of AEW, that this foundation for this company is very strong, knowing that the amount of pillars that they have. Garcia is one of those guys, SPD, that I think even for how young he is, you could trust him to go out and put on an amazing match with anybody, and to be able to have that kind of talent in your back pocket is just amazing for this company to have that. And he's, I'm so glad to see him get the opportunities that he has, because I think that Garcia, he's one of those guys, man, that should have a very long, amazing career that I think will be looked back upon like kind of, wow, he was better than, people talk about Mr. Perfect and guys like that who, were underappreciated at the time. Garcia's like got that kind of talent, man. His in-ring work is, I don't want to speak in superlatives here, right? But like, I've been a fan since I was a little kid. When I see Garcia, he's every bit as good as a technician as Chris Benoit was. He's every bit as, like hungry and fiery as when I look at his technique, his sky is the limit. And I love that now he could finally get untapped if he pairs up with Danielson, because Danielson from the beginning has talked. Remember when he was pitching the idea? Remember when he was pitching the idea to Moxley?
Garcia Lee Moriarty.
He brought up specifically Daniel Garcia, and this is the type of match where you see why. And with the way this match ended, you gotta be geeked, bro. I mean, like, Garcia potentially being a part of the Blackpool Combat Club with Danielson.
What do you think is gonna happen?
That would be an awesome. He fits right into that group. It's a natural segue. It would make perfect sense, dude. I think Blackpool Combat Club is a force to be reckoned with right now. Yeah. And with you're right about Danielson's participation in the group. Danielson's been spotty with his participation in AEW as a whole lately, SPD. So you gotta be mindful of that. But like Wheeler Yuta, that's a guy who comes in and out of the group. He's not always showcased in like week in, week out with that team. We have to see him a little bit with Claudio, but I think that having those moving parts Garcia could seamlessly join that group without the group feeling too crowded or too overflooded with talent. Like he makes sense there. So I don't know about Danielson's role in the Blackpool Combat Club, but just because he's not going out there at week after week with them, I don't see a fracture in that group right now. I think the group is, dude. I think this group is on fire. I truly think this group's on fire.
I mean, if Danielson Garcia does join the BCC, I mean, it kind of evens the odds if they are going to do the JAS BCC feud to continue, because you're talking 6 guys because they added Sammy late, and then now Garcia's over there, so now it's a true 5-on-5 without having to mingle in Santana, Ortiz. And
it's a more natural, right? It's more natural, right? Like, and again, he just fits that vibe.
Garcia's promos as of late, talking about being a sports entertainer. He's been so funny.
We get enough of that. We get enough of that from Jericho, and like when we hear Angelo Parker, and you saw the promo on Rampage about Angelo Parker and Daddy Magic wanting to start going for gold. They want to taste the gold. Go ahead, SPD. What do they want?
A big taste for gold.
Exactly.
Time, right?
So, I mean, yeah. So if everybody if they have their own focus, right, it allows Garcia to operate kind of not in a conflict with him being a babyface and them being heels, right? Yeah. We could see something similar happen with, I think we could see something similar happen with Team 2.0 that we saw with the Acclaimed, right? A heel tag team that is so charismatic and so easy to just laugh at and have fun with that they naturally get over with the crowd, and they could be a big act, right? Yeah. I think that those guys have potential. You're telling me that you couldn't see Team 2.0 with the tag titles at some point? I mean, to me, I think it's a shoo-in. I think that that's possible. This division is unpredictable. There's so much talent in this division, and that's what I want to get to next is the tag division and the Gun Club and the Acclaimed. Man, they are just. I feel like
it's not over, and I love it. It is not over.
We've been singing these guys' praises for so long. This was such a great show. Like, it was so great to see the Gun Club pissed off, mop the floor with the Varsity Blondes, and in a definitive match. You don't see that a lot in AEW anymore.
No, especially Varsity Blondes have been a top 5 ranked team multiple times and have had title matches. I was a little surprised that this was that quick of a match. Unfortunately, it does Varsity Blondes no good at all. But I think
the emphasis in the spotlight is on the Gun Club right now, my friend, and rightfully so. I think that we all here at Dynamite Download crew, we are firmly behind the Gun Club. We have been for a long time, ever since, really, I mean, like you said, it just texted me back and forth. How cool is it to see these guys being like cheerleaders in the crowd, to being truly one of the more like consistent, entertaining, reliable acts in the company. I mean, like, this tag division, it's so much better because they're in it. I mean, these guys, I can't put it any other way. They are entertaining, and this tag division is stacked from top to bottom. But think about all the great moments that the Acclaimed and the Gun Club have given us as fans. Just the laughs, the storyline has been incredible.
The Gun Club, yes, they have been, like I said, from seat fillers to main eventers in such a short amount of time, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Okay,
no, so it's awesome to see that kind of growth.
Instagram takeover to the hype crowd to main eventers in such a short amount of time, and they've deserved it, and they earned it, and they battled, and they are putting on some of the best feuds. And right now, with even another swerve that they gave us with turning on Daddy Ass right there. Crayfish and I were at Battle of the Belts in Grand Rapids, and after the show, we ran into the Acclaimed, and Bowens came up to us, was like, "Dynamite Download," and scissored us. And Max was like, not really talking to the crowd too much. I was like, "Max," I was like, Daddy Max, scissor us, Daddy Max," and he came over and gave Crayfish and I a nice scissor. So that was one of the cherry on tops of the nights after the show, that we got scissored from the Acclaimed.
We had a good time.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. But that being said, like this. After the dumpster match, I was like, okay, they could end the feud and kind of be done with that in a little bit. But now that Daddy Ass is getting so over and him joining the Acclaim, his stepsons, I think it's absolutely hilarious.
I agree.
And I think it's one of those things that And backstage, they're probably like, I can't believe this took off. This was kind of just probably an improv thing, calling you daddy ass, and it just goes with it. And the same with probably scissoring. It probably wasn't one of those like improv things. Like you just like you're high on adrenaline and emotion, and like that you're just doing silly things to get the crowd going. And just
Absolutely.
took off, and it's just working so well, man. Everyone wants to get scissored from the Acclaimed, and. It is the most ridiculous thing. It is on the level of on the level of suck it, but to be scissored,
it's true. It is true. I mean, being a part of the crowd, getting scissored by Bowens or Platinum Max is like when you're a kid and you get Bret Hart's sunglasses put on your head. I mean, it's awesome, man. You geek out no matter how old you are.
Yeah,
they're just so funny, and to see what these guys are doing, the charisma, the way they play off of each other. Everybody involved in this feud, all of them, all 5 of them are just hilarious. They're so good at what they do. And you can just tell they're having a blast, SPD. Like you said, improv stuff. You can just tell they're just naturally playing off of each other, and they're creating gold every single time they're on TV. Like you never see, and this is something that we've talked about countless times, so I feel like I'm a broken record. You pull this pull string on my back and I'll say it, but the Gun Club, these guys, they were never off, right? Like whenever they're on screen, you always they always feel like they know that the camera's watching, and so they're never going to be the type of team that just like you catch like sleeping on a segment. They're always engaged, and I love that about them. And I think it goes without saying, whenever you hear the siren, you know that you're going to get some laughs, you're going to be entertained. This is just perfect, and we've loved all the interaction that we've been able to have with those guys. We're rooting for them, and honestly, they've been like an absolute gem for AEW television and fans. There's no other way to put it, SPD. You said it really, really well, man. I think that like this whole story has just worked. It's just clicked, and I think that another like thing that is just clicking with fans, truthfully, is the trios. The tournament, like
if you know mainstream media, that song by Izzo, "It's About Damn Time." Right?
I don't know that song, but I agree with you. Like it is about damn time, and I think that fans, really early on, and like a lot of the people that we interact with, our little bubble of fans. If you're out there, we appreciate you, and thanks for sticking with us through the highs and lows. Appreciate that. But this is something that like This is something that we've all been talking about for a long time, and
with such a stacked roster and limited minutes on TV, it makes so much sense.
And over the years, I mean, this tournament would have looked very, very different, a year ago, 2 years ago. But it's in this current form. It's really got the potential to be something that creates some absolute gold.
The Factory's not on this bracket, but they'll get their chance eventually.
Yeah, they wanted there to be some suspense in this tournament. I mean, if the Factory was in it, we would all know they would have won. So
that's true.
It would have been just a shoe-in. You want to be able to have some suspense.
True.
But like, dude, this is something that like literally on Dynamite. I'm sitting there watching the show, and the death triangle shows up on screen. So immediately I'm like, okay, this is a segment I got to get into, right? Like this is a segment I got to really, really, I'm going to sit up and pay attention. And the bastard, I mean, this is a dude who like, no one would ever put him in the CM Punk, John Moxley promo category. I'm not saying that, but like he knows how to say so much in so few words. I love that about him. He just sounds like such an angry little bastard, and his confidence in himself. I mean, this promo that he cut, the way he reminded us, dude, we're getting Pac versus Ospreay. We're gonna get Phoenix versus United Empire. I know Jeff Cobb. If he's available, if he's part of this group, then great. I definitely am down with Jeff Cobb. I don't know much about United Empire beyond I like Will Ospreay, and I really like Will Ospreay. And to see him in the ring at any given time with Phoenix, Penta, or Pac, dude, I would literally want it to just be Will Ospreay versus those three. That's what I want. I mean, that match is
We
going
will
to be
Ospreys.
that match is going to be bonkers. And then you start to look at throw that tournament back up there because
It's gonna be it's got to be a show opener match to kick things off.
Well, think about the rest of the tournament, SPD, and I want to. This is one of the questions that, like, when I look at this, we already saw Best Friends versus Trustbusters, which I think all of us would agree, kind of felt like a weird match.
Yeah.
The way that they're going all in with the Trustbusters, hopefully I'm proven wrong. AEW usually does this, right? I usually have to, pump the brakes and give them time to flesh things out, but I'm struggling a little bit with the Trustbusters, right? Forgive me for trying to work through how I feel about the Trustbusters.
Tony Khan, I got to chime in real quick. He clapped back at someone on Twitter that I saw today, and it was about the Trustbusters being a main event on Rampage, and he was like, someone was saying it's 2022 and the Trustbusters and our main eventing Rampage and AEW some BS, but then he clapped back saying, this is the 2021 talking about 2.0 and Garcia be getting the same critics as well, and some other team I can't remember, and look at them now.
And that's where again, when I say that, right, I'm just saying I'm in the phase of Trustbusters, and this is where you and I even though sometimes I can look at the product and have some questions, you and I always sort of cling to this well, don't ever be too judgmental or harsh on what's going on, because if you've been a fan long enough, you're going to be proven wrong on a lot of stuff. If you start talking trash about a talent, the AEW does a great job of feeling things out and eventually getting you to come around to saying this worked. I mean, okay, Miro is an example. Look at Miro's journey and how far he's come, right? Mind Runner, thank you very much. This is something that I see time and time again in this company. Will Hobbs debuted as a kind of a pudgy babyface underdog story about talking, and we all knew tragedy happened in his childhood and his family, and look at the transformation that he's gone through. So if you're somebody who's going to write off a guy like Hobbs right when you first saw him, you'd be looking like an idiot. And I think that AEW does that a lot. And so I'm not going to say the Trustbusters suck and that the Trustbusters are what a waste of time this is. I just felt like it was a bit odd given the amount of natural tandems that we know how to piece together as fans, right? To have them in the tournament, and I no disrespect to them, but they're so new to the scene in AEW, and it just didn't fit in my opinion. And the main event of Rampage, it was just one of those where I was like, it's so obvious. The Best Friends have to win this match, in my opinion. Orange Cassidy is so over. That's one of the things that Tony Khan was geeking. You mentioned Tony Khan's tweets. We all know Tony Khan loves Orange Cassidy, and he is right. It is so cool when we go to an event. It's so cool when you see kids love Orange Cassidy, man. They love him. They love dressing up as him. They think that he's just got that cool vibe. And if you're a kid, you're gonna love Orange Cassidy. You're gonna love him. And so I do think that they made the right decision in that first round match. I think you would agree. I want to hear your take on. You're always. I'll be honest with you. You're way better than I am when it comes to predictions.
Man,
looking at this bracket, can you give me a couple, give me your feel on it, and then I'll tell you, for me,
your take,
I'll tell you. Well, to me, I really think that these other matchups, SPD. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to unravel in them, and even if there's not the story, the House of Black and Dark Order, you can start to see that there's been the history there and a story there, but you're starting to see. Look at the talent. I mean, the matches that we're gonna get, they're gonna be bonkers. So, walk me through this, man, because you're really good with predictions. I want to hear your thoughts on the way that you think this tournament's gonna play out.
I mean, originally, I kind of went the obvious route: House of Black versus Young Bucks and Kenny, just because of the star power, and then I had House of Black going over, just because spreading the wealth. I would love to have Young Bucks and Kenny have gold. Do they need it? No, because if they're going to feud with Undisputed, that in and of itself is a gold. I think
That's true.
ultimately,
That's a good point.
I mean,
You always talk about that.
I'm
You always-
listening to the chat and kind of like just rethinking this and just looking at this. Like, I think the Dark Order and Best Friends are two kind of wild cards that can go either way. Like if you push this, yes, you on paper right now, you're looking at this. You wouldn't put Dark Order or Best Friends. Best Friends has been, as Excalibur said, the trios team that's been together since day one of all these people.
I mean, and how many times have you said the home team of AEW is the Dark Order, right? So that's a feel good side of the bracket if that ends up happening, right?
I think I love the takes in the chat about if I don't want Death Triangle to lose because they're a homegrown AEW team, but if Ospreay does, and then you kind of do that for Kenny, is Kenny ready for a singles match? I don't know. If you saw his promo, I think it helps protect him and ease him into.
That's a good point in the chat. I mean, that is a good point. The history that Ospreay and Kenny have, that is an interesting one.
That's pay-per-view worthy as it is.
It is.
I mean, Death Triangle and Ospreay.
But let's be honest. Like, again, we've had a million great matches in AEW, but we all have our little favorites that we hold on to, and they get forgotten in time and history.
Sure.
But Kenny Omega versus Pac, like very early on when we got to see that feud.
Unbelievable.
That feud put on some matches that were incredible. So no matter what, we're gonna see it. I mean, and I want to say this too. When I look at this tournament, I can't wait to hear you as a Kenny Omega fan. I want to hear about that match from you. But props to Andrade and Rush. Those guys
that match was incredible.
Dragon Lee, Rush, Andrade. Those guys. I want to see more of Andrade and Rush together. That pairing. There was a lot of controversy going around on Twitter about like Andrade feeling underutilized. And this could be an example of like, okay, go all in with those guys being legit title contenders because they put on some bonkers matches together. You could tell they feel very comfortable together. Wow. When you're standing across from Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, for them to be able to be looked at as peers and more than carry their own. I mean, that match was phenomenal. So I think that like you're already seeing the match quality, and we've had some tournaments where the match quality was hit or miss, right? Mm-hmm. I think you and I would both agree with that. Sure. This one feels like the match quality, the bar has been set. Who do you think is going to come out between? Because the only two matches we haven't seen. House of Black, Dark Order, Death Triangle, and United Empire. There's a lot of conversation out there, but what does SPD think?
I think so. House of Black side, which I'm kind of like on the side of the chat right now, is I think there's too much going on with Sting, Darby, and Miro and House of Black for House of Black to continue on this tournament and have their match it all out.
That's a great point.
House of Black versus the odd team Miro, Sting, and Darby. You have your own trios within there.
Love that idea.
It'd be a great match. Put the six amazing guys on the card. Yeah. And honestly, like the one that I'm really scratching my head, it's like Dark Order versus Best Friends because I think Dark Order will win. If you put Dark Order, so this would be a perfect finale in my opinion.
I hear where you're going, brother.
Versus Young Bucks and Kenny.
Yes.
Hangman's obviously in his corner.
Yeah.
Undisputed come out, and then they cost the Young Bucks the victory. Dark Order wins the trios belt, finally give them some gold versus well-deserved. And Hangman, if you've been watching BTE nonstop, he's like, this is made for them. This is them. This is them. And, there's been that bubble of like, is Dark Order done? And what's going on? They're losing steam.
You should be clipping this for Instagram, brother. I want to hear this on there.
I want Dark Order to win. This is their time. Put up the claws. And, on paper, this is would be
they're
quite
the underdogs of the tournament.
And underdogs of the tournament, Hangman in their corner. When Undisputed come out to cost the Young Bucks and Young Bucks and Kenny the titles, Hangman is kind of torn. He helps them out. He also celebrates with Dark Order. So it's a win-win-win-win because we're going to get the ultimate feud of Undisputed versus the Elite. And then Dark Order is going to have the belts, and they're going to start to actually get more TV time and have a nice little run. And who knows what's going to happen with the Hangman situation, though? Is he going to, silence the Elite and then celebrate with Dark Order, or is he going to join the Elite again? Or what? That makes
I'm
it
ready
more
for the
compelling.
Elite to get all back together. I am,
For-
but
for-
I hear you,
Yeah.
man. This is
For Young
this-
Bucks for House of Black to win it all. Like, yes, that'd be cool because they're a great team, but I don't think it's the time for them. Eventually, yes.
I love
Young
your-
Bucks
I
and
love the way you
Kenny,
book it,
if they
SPD.
win the belts, great. I think that's a win-win as well. So, but I think to spread it out to really, deepen the roster even more is give the Dark Order a chance, even if it's for 2-3 month run. Just let them ride. How do you want it to play out?
No, SPD, the way you just laid it out, man, I think that's a really great story. And I think it makes a lot of sense. I think that the way that the bracket plays out, the Bucks and Kenny versus the Dark Order with Hangman kind of torn, it's a brilliant booking by you. You've been really like pushing the United, like the Undisputed Elite versus the Undisputed Era, basically, versus the Elite. You've been pushing that.
Early on, we knew that would be like one of the best feuds.
You've been pushing that, and it makes this is like a great way for that to culminate. There's a part of me that like, oh man, Kenny and the Bucks, like they are the backbone of AEW, and they're the reason why we're here. They're the very reason why this whole thing exists. And I think, how cool would that be for them to be the first trios champions? And
Agree.
And really like. I know that might be controversial with some fans who would be like, "Oh, well, they're the bookers and they're the VPs and they're the champs."
Who cares?
But for me, like, I think it'd be kind of heartwarming a little bit. And that coming from the Grinch, Mr. Heel over here, it would be kind of heartwarming to see like that these guys who really like this was their dream. And nobody could do a better job of carrying it in ring wise than those guys. But I'll say this, Kenny, his suplexes they had the same snap. They looked incredible in that match. But I agree with you that there's something there that it feels like they're just, even though talent-wise you think, man, these guys this is going to be it. And the moment when we felt Kenny Omega come back, that rush, that awesome like vibe that you just gave
Battle
him.
cry.
But I think that you're right. I think that somehow, some way, they're going to come up short. I'm really geeked about the Death Triangle versus Will Ospreay and Aussie Open. I'm really geeked about that. Like again,
I would love that to be a finals match. Jeez,
like just talent, like it's just amazing. I can't pick against the Death Triangle, right? Because I love them so much, but I do think that it makes a lot of sense what you guys are saying about Ospreay and Kenny and the history that those guys have.
Pac too. I mean, you brought that up. Yeah, I almost forgot about it because how so much has been going on with so many different feuds with Kenny Omega. But that early on was one of the best feuds in AEW.
Yeah,
the early days.
It was.
You can't forget that. The
famous one that was a controversy early on too. But the thing that you planted that seed now with the Dark Order winning, and the more that you and I talk about it, the more that seed's getting watered. And it just makes a lot of sense. Like John Silver, I remember he tweeted recently about how he sees what people are saying online, how the Dark Order have no shot, and why are they even in the tournament? And this is what they're he's tweeted that, right? And so that underdog overcoming all the odds and coming out as the trios champion. Let's be real, dude. That would be so. The match quality would be great. How many times have we talked about what the Dark Order can do in the ring? So it would be. I'm with you. I think that's a great way to, like you said, flesh out the division. Some of these teams stand on their own just based off of talent and status, right? Like Andrade's not going anywhere, even though they lost, right? We all know that. And Death Triangle, even if they lose, they're still going to be big. But the Dark Order, this could be something that really catapults them, and then they could start having banger matches with so many of these other groups. I think that'd be a great showcase for them, right?
Because they deserve it. I definitely think because they have been, as we've echoed before, the home team of AEW. We did join Dark Order January on the push a year and a half ago, and as much as even if they make it to the finals and they lose, I think that says a lot. But I think it would benefit AEW more to have them win than to have the Young
I
Bucks
agree. I
Kenny
think it's a
win
great
somehow.
story. I'm,
You could have Undisputed dethrone the Dark Order in Hangman's spite, and then the Young Bucks and Kenny dethrone Undisputed. Put it in that way.
I love it.
Because there's so
You're
many ways to
really
go
good
with
at
it.
this, SPD. I love it. I'm all in, man. You got me hook, line, and sinker. Let's see it happen. I love the idea.
Team Dynamite download is for Dark Order winning the tourney.
I need another beer, but yeah, that I'm in, man. I'm with you. Let's talk about that, like that actual match that we saw from Dynamite. The return of Kenny. How amazing that was, because I mean, I was talking about it like this is Kenny Omega week. There's a guy at my local grocery store. It was Wednesday one night, like a couple months back, and I was wearing an AEW shirt, and he like stopped me. He works there, and he like was like, "Oh man, the show's gonna be great tonight. Whatever. I wish I could see it or whatever." And then we started chatting, and every time I go in there, it's literally like I walk to the grocery store all the time.
Yeah.
And every time I go in there, he and I talk about Dynamite and AEW, and it's great. And I was telling him, I was like, dude, this is Kenny Omega week. He's coming back. And he's like, no, I don't think so. And I was like, dude, he's coming back. And it was so cool to see Kenny and the Bucks reunited. I mean, these guys are just, I don't know, brother. I don't know if like anybody's puts on as consistently awesome matches as those guys. I mean, I can't tell you a bad Young Bucks match. I just haven't seen it. Kenny Omega the same way. They know. They're so polished and they're so good at what they do. This was no exception. I mean, I went on a little – I mean, Andrade and Roosh, I haven't seen much of Dragon Lee, so it was cool to see him kind of interacting with talent like the Elite and getting that showcase. Good, it was good for him. But, I mean, Andrade and Roosh, those guys –
outstanding match. I mean –
this match was bonkers. It's one of those main events where you're just like, man, like you said – top to bottom, this episode of House of the Dragon was just fantastic matches, good quality stuff, great content, and for the show to end like this, SPD, just an awesome moment with Kenny and Don coming back. We missed Don Callis.
Did we?
Good stuff, man.
But I think when I was watching this match, obviously like the talent on both sides of the ring was just top notch, but I felt like the Young Bucks like 3 more notches than they already have been doing. I'm like, oh my gosh, the Young Bucks, not that they were ever gone. I was like, these guys are just elevating their game. Like they are just absolutely.
Good to hear you say that, man. Yeah.
It was just so fun. I'm like, this is why they're my favorite tag team. And just wearing the danglies. If you watch that Kenny Omega promo after the behind the scenes one,
I thought you were a Lucha Bros fan. Now you're a Young Bucks fan.
Oh,
okay, all right. Okay.
Lucha Bros are my
no. You said it.
Lucha Bros.
Okay.
All along it was Young Bucks, but Lucha Bros beat me.
All right.
Lucha Bros, my top 3 tag teams: Young Bucks, FTR, in that order.
Man.
What are your top 3 in the order?
I'm FTR through and through. That's my number 1. I'm like, I mean, oh man, this is tough because I'm really down with Swerve and Our Glory right now, and I really like their vibe. And
a tag team that shouldn't have been a tag team.
I was pushing for them when they were like teasing in the breakup. I was like basically begging on Twitter, please don't break up. I think you guys are incredible together. I think that just the talent that those two guys have, the way they play off of each other. I love, Keith Lee, this massive human being, just so powerful, yet so athletic. And I love his stoic, like just nothing's going to fuck with me vibe that he has, paired with Swerve's. It's just like, Swerve's like that crafty, like sneaky wrestler who's willing to take any underhand. I love that about him. He's a snake, man. I love that about Swerve. And he's like the ultimate showman. So like his over-the-top personality paired with Keith Lee's just like very steady, quiet vibe about him. They just are so great together, character-wise and in ring. They just play off each other so well. I've fallen in love with this group. And I'm so happy they're the tag champs. I really, really like Swerve in Our Glory. It might feel weird or just like I'm a victim of the moment, but I'm really down with what they're doing. If you're talking full, like all time, my list is obviously FTR, Bucks, Lucha Brothers, probably, right?
Yeah.
I love those guys too, and it would be in that order. But if you're talking about right here, right now, Swerve in Our Glory is on that list for me, dude. I am
Wow.
so into Swerve in Our Glory right now. I think that they're like well-deserved champs. I think that they should have dominated this match on Rampage. I think that they should have just mopped the floor with those guys. And like I thought that Swerve in Our Glory, I just feel like they have Private Party. No disrespect to them, right? They're originals. And
Love them.
they put on great matches. They're fun, right? Like Isaiah Cassidy especially has blossomed into like one of those characters that is a lot of fun to see. But
Gotten so much better on the mic too. I'm sure.
all due respect to them, right? No disrespect. They've really held their own in one of the best divisions. Probably the best tag division I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
They've held their own and they've kept their spot and they put on good matches. But Swerve in Our Glory like should have dominated that match, and that's where like I want to make a plea to Tony Khan and AEW that Swerve in Our Glory needs to strap the rockets to these guys. They're already the tag team champions, but SPD, I'm talking about wanting to see a legit, incredible run. I believe that these guys have that it factor that could really. And again, we all love FTR. We all love the Bucks. These are teams that are mainstays and they're staples. And you've talked about this countless times. When you have certain teams and the stories that they're in, they don't always need to have the AEW Tag Team Championships. The Bucks are going to be a relevant team no matter what, right?
Yeah.
Swerve in Our Glory feels like they could hit gold here. Like I loved both those guys as individual wrestlers, right? But to see like you said, something that might have never happened, right? For them to make it work, to make that tandem work, and to see how they've blossomed, their creativity, the way they play off of each other in the ring, bro. I love watching those guys in the ring. I want to see them in matches with upper tier talent consistently, and I want to see them go on a run where they beat some big teams. I'd love to see them go toe to toe with the Lucha Brothers and beat them, right? Like,
wow,
like have some big wins, dude. Like, I think this is a tag team that you need to like. I think that AEW could really go behind. I don't want to see them getting these these wins over the undercard. I want to see them in a program with a big tag team. I want to see that. I know we got to see Hobbs and Starks for a little bit, which was nice, right? But I want to see them going against some of the mainstays, and I want to see them.
This is where I think it's going to be. Sorry to cut you off with that comment.
Tell me.
It's going to be, I think, Andrade Rush and Swerve and
that matchup would be great. That matchup would be great.
Eliminated from the tournament.
Yep.
Swerve and Keith Lee have no, clear opponent currently. And Agreed. I know there was that talk about, him sending Private Party to try to bring the goal back. Now he can be like, now I'm going to do it. Even though they're not a ranked tag team officially right now, currently. That would be a great match. And then
good call by Mind in the comments. Absolutely.
Andrade and Rush at All Out. I think that would be quite the notch in the belt.
Yep.
But also the belts could change there. And it would be deserving for Andrade, in my opinion,
it would
to do that. But I don't want the Swerve in the glory reign to end. But it seems like the tag team belts are one of those ones that change relatively frequently, which
much more
such
often
a deep roster, which I like that personally.
Me too. I get it. I agree. It makes it recognizes, like you talk about, building stars, putting belts on talent and making and having them have epic big matches. That's what I want. I want to see them go toe to toe with some of these big teams, and I love the idea by you in mind. I think it makes a lot of sense, man. We know that match will be one of the ones that could steal the show, right? That is the type of match that, if given some time, the talent involved are going to put on a hell of a performance. And you know that Andrade, especially Andrade, is going to bring it when he has an opportunity to win gold. That's a guy who always seems to rise to the occasion. And that's why I think there's a groundswell of support for Andrade to get more opportunities. It's just like that is a guy who, when he's put in a big spotlight, he delivers. He gives his best when he has that opportunity. Some guys, they just respond different, when they're really put on the spot. Like when you have to be out on the auto show and you need to be in front of all those people, the nerves, the millions. He's got that, you throw him out there in the big stage, Andrade will deliver. And there's not all, there's a lot of guys who under that kind of pressure could crumble. So right. I think that if you put those teams together at All Out, you're going to have a hell of a match.
So we're going to have a nice all-out preview show, which will be a lot of fun to watch. Because, we've only had about probably, I think, 4 matches announced. But let's just say theoretically, obviously the world title, I don't think is going to change hands. Let's put that aside. The TNT title is not going to be defended because it's going to be in a trios match. And then so theoretically, let's talk Thunder Rosa real quick. Thunder Rosa versus Toni Storm, Jade Athena. It's all with the writing in the sand, in the stars. And let's just
write it in the stars and the sand. Do it.
Yeah, might as well write it there.
Why not?
Let's just say those 2 women's matches, and then the one we just talked about, the tag match, Swerve in the Glory versus Andrade versus Rush. If those 3 do go to the card at All Out, which belt is most likely to change hands in your opinion?
Well, I know that we have, we have a lot of fans on the Thunder Rosa Army, but I could see that one changing hands. I think Toni Storm is a star, and I think that every opportunity she's had, even when she was feuding with Britt, she does not back down. She feels like she belongs. I think that one could change hands, especially with Britt being involved in their story. Yeah. That Britt, Hayter, and Rebel have a lot of history with Thunder Rosa and would love nothing more than to have her go down. So I think that out of all of them, I think that the women's title has the most likelihood. And I think that the competitor there, it is presented in a way where Toni Storm oozes star power, championship material. She's presented that way. I think that she's got she can carry herself as a champion. And the story has already been played. You listen to Britt Baker's promo on Rampage, and again, there are few people who could cut a promo like the DMD. There are very few people who could cut a promo like her. And again, she kills it in this promo, right? She takes Thunder to task. She laughs at the drama between Thunderstorm as a team, and just so many people were predicting Hayter to turn on Britt. That group seems so rock solid right now. Wow. I think that it's so cool. One of the things I really want to emphasize out of all this is that it's really cool to me that AEW has continued this Britt Baker Thunder Rosa feud and
for a
used
long
it
time.
A really long time. And again, my favorite feud in women's wrestling, and I think the most complex and the one with the most layers. It's really good. Things that have blurred the lines of what's real and what's not with the way that they've talked about each other. But they've used that strong feud to start to bring in other characters and elevate them, right? Like Toni Storm is now looked at as a peer of Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker. She's looked at as a legitimate championship contender because of that. Jamie Hayter is looked at as a blossoming potential champion one day. No one would deny that Jamie Hayter has that. She has a presence that few people in the women's division have, right? Like she has that bully, like she's got that vibe to her, and maybe Jade obviously feels that way, but there aren't a lot of women in this division that carry themselves like Jamie Hayter does in the ring. So she's gotten an opportunity to shine as being Britt's bodyguard. This is just a really nice, it's a nice little foundation that they're building other stars off of. And I love that they continue to go back to the well. I think that this doesn't get old for me. It just keeps getting better. The Britt Thunder Rosa saga is phenomenal. And if Britt somehow cost Thunder Rosa the belt, it would allow Toni Storm to go in a whole new direction with her trajectory. She becomes champion, but it allows Thunder and Britt to reignite the flame. And there's to me, I'm all for it, man. I don't think that they can go back to it often enough. I truly believe that this story, this feud between these girls, it only gets better. I am fully invested in that as from an in-ring perspective and from a storyline perspective.
All right.
So that's how I would book it. I would actually book Thunder Rosa to lose at the pay-per-view. That's the one that I would say is the most likely to happen. I would book Toni Storm to be the new women's champion.
Put that on your bingo card.
I am going to do it.
I'm putting your pick in right now.
It's
the pick is locked in. Oh, gosh, man. It's been great chatting with you tonight. Thank you all for joining us. I know we only scratched the surface on such a busy week in AEW television. And,
show flew by, though.
Wow, it did fly by. But it was meaty. I mean, you talk about the trios division is something we've been talking about for so long. That's a meaty topic for sure. And then the return of CM Punk. But thank you guys for joining us. We are, as we say at Dynamite Download, buckle up because we are in for it, man. The road to All Out is here, and next week is the show in Cleveland. It's like a mini pay-per-view, and they keep adding more and more stuff. And
man, dude, Cleveland, my hometown. I feel like Tony Khan is trying to lure me back to Cleveland, just like spoil me. I miss Cleveland every day. It's in my heart. But, dude, that show is gonna be insane. It's gonna be. And it's not even the road.
There's still another Dynamite after.
Oh my god, it's gonna be so good. So I mean, if you're an AEW fan right now, I feel like Dynamite it's must watch right now. It is clear that they are in overdrive, bro. They are pushing. Kenny comes back. You got Mox and Punk. I mean, you have some serious stuff to tune in for, man. I love what we're getting as a fan.
It's incredible stuff, man, and I'm glad you're back on the saddle, riding into the sunset at full speed ahead. But
we didn't even talk about Christian and Jungle Boy.
I know,
my goodness, so
incredible. We didn't talk about the full women's division either, and it was. I mean,
all out preview show is going to be a lot of fun, man.
You guys have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you for joining us as always. We love you, and we'll talk soon, baby.